We're on here at College Athlete Advantage. Today we're with Blake Beemer, recruiting coordinator at Ball State. Blake, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Really good, really good. Before we get started here, why don't we tell the viewers kind of your background a little bit, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so I'm the recruiting coordinator here at Ball State. Previously, I was at Eastern Illinois University. I was the volunteer at Penn State before that, and prior to that, I played at Ball State for 4 years under three different head coaches.
Before we went on live here, you told me that you knew you wanted to be a college coach at the age of 12.
Yeah,
That was kind of odd to me. How did that come about?
I think it's one of those things. I've been around it my whole life. My dad coached at Wright State in Bowling Green before I was born. I tell everybody he loves baseball more than he loves me. Um, I think it's probably true, and if you know him, you'd probably agree. So just being around the game, and then I remember going to Wright State games when I was 8 and UD games when I was 8 and 9 years old, and thinking it was the coolest thing. I think the aluminum bats and the offense there drew me to it. And then by the time I was 12 and starting to figure things out, I had a big desire to be a college baseball coach. I just thought it was the coolest job in the world, and now I'm fortunate. I haven't worked a day in my life yet. It's pretty neat.
Really cool. So before we get into kind of your role as recruiting coordinator at Ball State, what I really want you to do is tell people your recruiting story and kind of what play you were in high school, how the college process went for you, and kind of that whole thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. By today's standards, I was super late. I'm a 5'11" on my driver's license. It says 6'1", but I'm a 5'11" outfielder who ran a 7 flat. So not exactly a 5-star recruit in anybody's mind. I had an offer to Sinclair Community College out of Dayton, where I'm from, and then a Division II offer to Lincoln Memorial in Tennessee. Those are my 2 scholarship offers throughout my senior year. I went to a camp at Ball State in February of my senior year. And then in April, something opened up. I don't even know what it is, but Coach Beals offered me a roster spot. Again, in April of my senior year, I had no clue where I was going. By today's standards, kids are freaking out if they don't commit by their junior, sophomore, junior year even. But that's just – it was more common then. And I had faith in my abilities. I knew wherever I went, I was going to get the most of my playing experience. I thought I wanted the Division I experience, and I'm glad I did. I went to Ball State as a recruited walk-on. Struggled mightily my freshman fall. When I say struggled, I mean I got 1 hit. My roommate will tell you I was the worst player on the team. I would probably agree. I expected to get redshirted after our fall meetings, and Coach Beals, he said, "Hey, I like some of the things you do. Expect to travel." And I don't even think I said thank you. I just got out of his office as fast as I could so he couldn't change his mind. As soon as he said it, I was like, I think he thinks I'm somebody else. I got out of there, and sure enough, I traveled, struck out my first at bat on like 7 swings, and I don't think any of them were strikes. And struck out my next at bat on like 7 swings, and none of them were strikes. And third at bat was like the 3rd weekend of the year, and I got a seeing eye single, and I think I started just about every game after that for 4 years. So it was a pretty cool experience for me, just seeing it all come together.
A really good story. Let's kind of go into your role as recruiting coordinator. Obviously, being in Indiana, I think what I saw in the 2020 roster, like a 30-year guys are in state, and obviously you guys do a lot of out-of-state recruiting as well. When you talk to different people to learn information on players, what makes somebody a reliable resource? What makes them trustworthy, or how do you grade out the person giving you information?
I think, and that's the part that I'm still in as a younger coach, is trying to grow your database and grow your network of people that you can trust. But simply having conversations with guys goes a long way. And then when you have a conversation with, whether it be a high school coach, a junior college coach, a summer coach, or somebody who's just helping kids along, when you see the kid and he is what they told you he was going to be, all of a sudden you just put that in the back pocket, like, okay, he was right about that. I can trust him on that. And if he undersells a guy, it's, man, he's better than he said. So he's going to undersell his guys, and I can really trust his word there. Or you'll get a call from a coach and, he'll say, hey, I've got a kid who's 88, 91 on the mound. You need to come see him. And you go out and you see him and he's 81, 82. Well, that coach loses credibility. And so it's making as many phone calls and creating a database and a network of guys that you can trust. But to build that, you just gotta have those conversations and follow up on guys that they advise or guys that they've seen, and just see how many guys you can get that are what they say they're going to be and hopefully better.
How many times do you or guys on your staff need to see a player play live to offer them? Is there a minimum number of requirements you need to see them to compete, or would you ever offer based on the video? Is there a certain how do you guys do that?
Yeah, we've especially in today's age where stuff is sped up sometimes. We've offered based on video. When I was at Eastern Illinois, we offered a kid from a junior college based on a video, and he was a 17th round draft pick last year. We never saw him pitch. We offered him, he committed, and sometimes it works out. Ideally, we would see guys play live. I don't know if there's a perfect number. I always think that if hopefully it doesn't take too many times. The more times I go see a guy or our staff goes to see a guy, the less likely it is that he's our guy. Because we always say we're not trying to convince ourselves of guys. We want guys that are no-brainers that we fall in love with, that they're going to fit into our system. So if we have to go see a kid 4, 5, 6 times, well, then we're probably trying to force ourselves to like him, and it's probably not the guy. We always tend to say 1 or 2 times, if you see a kid and you like him, that's the real deal. If we can see a kid 3, that's perfect. But I think more than that, you're starting to convince yourself, and you're trying to fall in love with something that might not be there.
Good. I like that answer. I like the part of not wanting to convince yourself into players. When it comes to third-party evaluations from a perfect game, a PBR, do you pay attention to rankings? Do you look at their database? Do you use it as a pole position in the guy? How do you use those third-party tools to help yourself in recruiting?
I think the biggest thing that those services do, and all of them, they have different things that are great. But the biggest thing is verifiable data. I understand that if it's a kid's on PBR and it says that he throws 87, well, somebody had a radar gun and it's probably in the video that he threw 87. So I can trust that. Same with perfect game and some of their rankings. But I don't get too caught up in where the rank is, just because the rankings are people's opinions. And we're trying to deal with as much factual information as possible. So factual information. The kid threw 87. We can verify that as a fact. The kid ran a 6.860. We can verify that that's a fact. Whether or not the kid's better than the kid 7 spots above him who's committed to a Power 5 school, nobody's going to know. That's somebody's opinion. And so we don't worry too much about that. In the end, the high school rankings, they don't win us championships in the MAC. That's the reality of it. We win championships with guys that are in college that produce and play for us, so we don't get caught up in where the ranks are prior to it. We just want to be ranked at the top when it's all said and done here.
You mentioned at Eastern you offered a guy in a video and it worked out pretty well. How prevalent is video? Take out the crazy circumstances we're in now, because you're probably watching a lot more because you're probably bored like a lot of coaches. But so take this part out. How prevalent is video in your recruiting? How much time do you spend watching it? And then on top of that, what do you want to see from players?
I think it's huge. It's huge for us because it helps us prioritize what guys to go see live in order. So say I get a video from a left-handed arm that looks intriguing, and let's say he's within a couple hours. Well, it makes a lot of sense for us to go see that kid as soon as we can, seeing he's in our backyard, it's left-handed, the video looks right, as opposed to getting an email from a lefty saying he's interested and he's talented. Well, if I can't see it, I don't know where to place him as far as our pecking order of guys to go see. So the video there, I think it's a huge benefit to guys. We spend a lot of time, because different times of the year have different recruiting rules. So when we're in the quiet period, we watch a lot of video. I try to see every video that I get emailed. We've got a database, Google Sheet. I put the name in, I'll type notes up. That way everybody on the staff has been able to log or see the videos that we get sent. So I try to watch everyone, make a few notes on each, just so at least I've got something in our computer system. So if I see a kid again, I can go back, type his name in. Okay, I like the video. Okay, man, this matches up. If you like the video and I liked him live, well, there's a lot of good things there. Maybe that's going to be a matchup for us.
You talked about within a couple hours where you're at. Do you prioritize based on geography? So let's just say, to your example, you have the same lefty pitcher. One's 2 hours away from you. One is, maybe 4 states away from you. Do you prioritize the guy that's closer to you if they have the same skill set?
I don't know if we prioritize them. It just, you have more of a realistic chance to get that kid typically. If there's a kid that we can build a connection with in Utah, and I think there's a genuine connection, then we'll definitely try and see him. The logistics of it just don't always make sense. We typically will fly out west once or twice, once in the fall, once in the summer. Same with getting down the deep south. We'll get down there once or twice a year. But typically for our recruiting, we're going to have to be drivable. That's just being a mid-major. We can't just fly everywhere. So we can really, that's where the video helps. We can prioritize who we need to see. And if we can see 4 or 5 guys in one spot, if we get a bunch of videos or a bunch of interest or guys on our list, well, it makes a lot of sense to go make that trip. But we won't prioritize a guy just because he's local. But if all things are even, the local guy is going to be seen first typically, just because it's easier for us to get to.
Now, I probably should have done this homework before I jumped on this call here, but how many Division I's are in Indiana?
It's a good question. I should probably know that. I think my gut answer is 10.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard 13 or somewhere in that range. So it's, let's just say someone will give us the facts later on, 10 to 13 in that range. So my question is, because there's a lot, and where I live in Arizona, there's 3, so it's crazy. My question is, do you find yourself butting up against a lot of the same coaches for the same players there, and therefore have to lead to less dense areas for players?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think anytime, especially in our area where we have a facility, it's called Grand Park, that has 8 fields or so that every college in the country seems to be at one point or another. It's like 40 minutes from us, but everybody's there. Some of our best recruiting is just get away where there's nobody, try and find guys off the beaten path. I've spent time at American Legion games again, spend more time at high school games trying to find guys. Just the less competition for the best players, it's going to bode well for us. So places that don't have as many Division I schools like Arizona, that's definitely places of interest to us, just because maybe we can go sneak a guy that while everybody's in Indianapolis, we can be out there, find the same kid potentially.
Everything else being equal, do you prefer recruiting high school players or JC guys, and why?
We have a good mix. I think there's pros and cons, obviously, to both. We'll tend to lean high school kids more, but we're going to have a couple junior college guys every year. Our hope for the junior college is to plug and play, get a kid that we think can come in, contribute right now, and help fill a need. The high school kid are more of a developmental kid, especially at a mid-major. We're taking a chance on high school kids more that probably aren't ready to play right away physically. That's just what we are. They have to have a chip on their shoulder, do something different to help us compete against the Power 5, because that's our goal. We want to be the best team that we can. Like, our goal is to win everything. We want to make a trip to Omaha just like everybody else. And to do that, our high school kids typically aren't ready as freshmen. They have to come in, get bigger, faster, stronger. We're projecting a little bit more, but if we can do it right, hopefully we can have some success. We've had some success with high school arms recently, and if we can keep building off that, hopefully we can get something special.
Say you're recruiting a player and you get a chance to watch him play live. Would you prefer to watch him play live on his high school team during the season, or would you prefer to watch him live in his club ball team in a different situation?
I think whichever one's going to have better competition. Some high school games you'll find really competitive pitchers on the mound, really competitive teams, and sometimes it's better to see them in summer ball when they're facing more of a select group. I thoroughly enjoy high school games. I think there's a cool atmosphere. There's something to be said about playing for the team that's in your area that you grew up with the guys that you grew up with. I enjoy scouting and watching those. But if we're going to see a kid, I have no problem seeing him against an arm committed to somebody else. That way I have a better gauge of what he's going to be like against better competition. So to answer your question, I don't know if I have a favorite. I think if I can find a good high school matchup, I like that just because I think there's more sense of team in it as far as the game standpoint. But from recruiting an individual, I think the summer ball makes a lot of sense.
How early do you feel, how comfortable do you feel offering young player? How early would you go to offer a player as far as young goes?
Depends how good he is. um, I'm not good enough yet at my job to say, hey, we need to be offering kids in middle school all the time. But if Ken Griffey Jr. or Mike Trout were in the 8th grade and I'd seen him, I feel like I'd be pretty good enough to say, hey, he can probably help us in 4 years. But there's just so many variables. And again, at a mid-major, we typically do better with kids that develop late, kids that hopefully Power 5 schools who are moving early they miss on, kids that haven't grown yet or have a late growth spurt, their arms haven't developed, haven't gotten strong enough yet. So we don't do a ton early. We're starting to more and more because that's where the game's going. And there are some guys that we have no problem if their tools, their abilities say, hey, they can play right now. It's a lot easier for us to say, okay, we can offer that kid than it is to say, man, if he gets better 4 years from now, he could help us. That kid we have a lot harder time offering early. Most of our offers are going to be made in their junior year still. We've got a few offers out to the younger guys, but typically our class will be made up that junior summer.
I tell people when I was at Central Arizona College, we coached against Bryce Harper, and he was 16 years old at the time and left 2 years early to high school. And I told my former coach, I said, listen, I don't care what you've seen. I said, barring injury, this guy's a Hall of Famer. And he laughed me out of the phone call. I said, that's fine. She doesn't believe me. I saw one swing. I've never seen something like that
Yep.
from a 16-year-old kid. So I'm with you. It's like, hey, once you see talent and you've seen enough players, like, okay, that plays and feel good enough. On the opposite
100%.
side of that stuff, do you ever tell a player he's not good enough? Let's say you have a guy that's emailing you, he's showing up to camp, and Ball State's in his top 3 or top 5, and you just, you want to get rid of guys because maybe they develop later on, but you just know this skill set is not going to play. Do you tell them that?
Yeah, I think that's the only way to do it. I try to respond to every email I can. And the reason I do that, I remember when I was going through the recruiting process, I sent a lot of emails to schools, and a lot of schools didn't get back, and that's frustrating. Again, I'm young enough to remember how that felt. So I try to make sure I get back to kids. And typically what I'll say if a kid's short, I'll just say, hey, this is what we typically recruit, whether it's a position player and what the metrics are and where they might be short, or I'll say, hey, I just don't see you playing here. You would be better served looking at another level, in my opinion, or another Division I if you can find it. But I think the transparency, and Coach Maloney calls it dirtbag honesty. You got to be just dirt honest with people. That's the only way to really build trust in a relationship. So we do it with our players. We tell them all the time, hey, the reason they're not playing, they're not good enough yet. And same with recruits. If a kid's not good enough by the time it's needing to be decision-making time, we just have to tell them instead of telling them, hey, maybe, there comes a point where we have to tell them it's not going to happen here. I try not to crush kids' dreams. I don't want to do that to anybody. But I think it helps when people are realistic and say, hey, there's a place for you to play somewhere. I truly believe that for everybody. But it's not necessarily always Ball State. It's not always Division I, not always Division II. Sometimes you have to search a little bit more to find that place.
Good. 2 more questions here. We'll finish up.
No worries.
How well, the new numbers, I told a couple other guys too. I went to convention in Nashville, and I've been out coaching 5 years. I felt like I've been out coaching for 35 years with all the new technology and number stuff too. How much emphasis do you put on metrics and numbers? Are there some you value more, and how's that data affect how you view a player?
I think you have to balance it. I think metrics and numbers are great because, again, it gives you information that can be verified quickly. And again, in a setting in college athletics right now where everything's sped up, everything's I think as competitive as it's ever been, where you have to try and make decisions on kids, you have to try to find the right kids faster. Um, Metrics give you a little bit of, I guess, a safety net on why you're going after a kid. But in the end of the day, we need baseball players. You got to win baseball games. I think it's important to have guys that have twitch and athleticism. But again, I was a seven flat 60 runner. I hated 60. It makes no sense to me why we do it. Do I bring a stopwatch when I can? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm part of the problem. I get that. It doesn't define how good of a baseball player you are, but it does tend to say some athleticism, and the more athletic guys we can get, the better off we feel we're going to be. It gives you, like I said, just a safety net to miss. I don't think there's an automatic number for anything that we're recruiting that say, hey, that kid's going to be successful. We've got plenty of arms that throw over 90 that don't get as many outs that our guy that throws 85 gets. Same that we've got a bunch of guys that run under 6'6", and they don't steal as many bases as our 6'8" guys runs. I mean, it's just you got to still be a baseball player, but the tools do open a lot of doors. So I'd be lying if I said they don't matter. I think you have to have some sort of tools. And again, athleticism and twitch are going to open eyes, but be a good baseball player after that. And that's how you'll stay in the game a long time.
Would you have recruited yourself?
I like to think I would have, but I understand why I was a walk-on. I can tell you that. And I was a guy that I think you had to see play a few times. I was fortunate. Coach Beals is from Dayton. I think or is from Springfield, right outside of Dayton, and was able to call a couple high school coaches who I played against, and had seen me at camp. And I did some things enough that he gave me a chance, but I think that he did a lot of background digging on me. But I was just a kind of a scrappy little baseball player. And so I like to think I would take me on our team, but I do think I was probably fit to be a walk-on. So that's just kind of what it was.
Awesome. Last question. When you're competing out there recruiting, you're going head to head with guys. You know, if I'm a player and I'm looking at Ball State versus a couple other schools, why Ball State? Why if I'm a player, I'm looking at similar schools in the mix, and you're one of the schools I'm considering, why would I choose Ball State?
I think we've got a tradition here that's pretty unique. Coach Maloney, he got the program going in the late 90s. We had a first overall pick in Brian Bollington. We've had more first rounders than any school in the state of Indiana. We've had that tradition to develop guys. We've had guys in the big leagues like Zach Plezak, which not every mid-major can say. And it's a place that you get Division I athletics at a pretty big-time field. We've got great facilities, great support in baseball. We've got 25,000 kids on campus in a college town. I think there's a lot of neat things. You look at the fact that we've won 30 or more games, 7 straight years under coach. Guys continue to get drafted. Guys continue to get better for the most part. I think there's a lot to like, but it's not for everybody. Again, we're a mid-major. You have to have a chip on your shoulder. You got to be blue collar. We're not going to be have everything the Power Fives have, and we love that. We don't want it. I promise you. We want to be blue collar. We want to be down and dirty, and I think we really relish guys, and guys do really well who understand that, and they flourish here.
Good. Well, Blake, thank you for your time today. I know everybody's kind of probably bored of being at home so much too. So hopefully next time we chat, you're on the field recruiting, going out and getting your guys for next year.
Absolutely.
Definitely appreciate your time today, Blake.
No, Mike, thanks for having me, and let me know if I can help in the future.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.